I have prepared, Mr. Speaker, I
am sorry. Proceed.
have prepared an amendment, LC 000869/10. This amendment,
One moment, please. Let me get it in play. Representative Agello moves amendment LC 000869/10. That is seconded by Representative Walsh, Representative Hull, Representative Kislak, Representative Fogarty. Proceed, Representative.
Mr. Speaker, my point in doing this is to, at minimum, increase the number of decision makers regarding important decisions for my city, the city of Providence, our capital city, to raise the minimum number of decision makers to 4. Right now, as the legislation stands, the 7 members of the commission, if 4 of them are present at a meeting and voting, and a majority of them approve the measure, it passes. That means 3 out of the 7 could get the job done. I think back, Mr. Speaker, to the 38 Studios scene. One person at that summer meeting of the commission then in authority to let that bond money, one person voted against it. That was Mr. Wadenstein. I don't want one of 4 people present at a meeting to be not able to make the difference. I think it should be at least 4 people making a decision. I move the amendment.
Okay, I had 2 lights and I still have them on. Representative Hull, are you on the amendment?
Mr. Speaker.
All right, okay. I'll come back to you on the act. And Leader Filippi, are you on the amendment? No, you are not either. Leader Shekarchi.
I don't know if I was a little distracted, but was the amendment seconded and is it in play?
It was seconded and it is in play.
Thank you. Then I would respectfully have to urge everyone to vote against the amendment. And let me just explain to you why. In the practicality of the amendment is to create a supermajority, so that in a 7-member majority, you'd have to have 4 people voting on everything. It's a supermajority. We in this state don't do supermajorities. When we pass things in this House, it's by majority vote. When the Supreme Court makes a decision in Rhode Island, it's by majority vote. You would, in essence, create a supermajority. If there were only 5 members present, you'd have to get 4 to approve it. So technically speaking, there could be 7 members, it could be 6 members, it could be 5 members, it could be 4 members. Whatever the number of members there, it's a majority. I have several other bills not related to this article, but to get rid of supermajorities, because I don't think that's prudent. I mean, we don't govern like that. The Senate doesn't work like that, the House doesn't work like that, the Supreme Court doesn't work like that, and we shouldn't make little subdivisions work by supermajorities. The most important decisions that we make in the state of Rhode Island are made by the Supreme Court of this state, and that's by simple majority, and that's why I think we don't need a supermajority for this or for anything, Mr. Speaker. For anything that we decide or anybody decides in the state should be by simple majority. Majority rules. Therefore, I would urge defeat of this amendment. Thank you.
Leader Filippi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wasn't going to speak, but my good friend, Leader Shekarchi, said that we do everything by majority of the quorum. I would specifically refer to you to SHAB, the State Housing Appeals Board. They require a majority of the full board when we're dealing with comprehensive permits to establish substantial completeness. So in terms of development, and this is another usurpation of local control board, SHAB requires a majority of the full board for affirming substantial completeness.
Representative Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 7 people. That's what we're asking for. Not even. We're asking for a minimum of 4. There are over 180,000 constituents who live in Providence. And in this bill, we're saying, yeah, they have a say, but we don't have any obligation to listen to them. There are 14 representatives for Providence. And we're saying, yeah, they have a say, but we have no obligation to listen to them. 7 senators have a say, but no obligation to listen to them. But us asking for a minimum of 4 people is too much. I think that what's really happening is we're trying to narrow down the amount of voices that make this decision. Because the people in my neck of the woods have already spoken, from the mayor to my constituents. On a personal level, we have a large number of empty skyscrapers in downtown Providence. And I would be happy to build another as soon as those are filled. I don't see the democracy in taking the decision that a neighborhood has made and saying, well, you guys are a little too eccentric to make the right, fair choice. I don't imagine if I put in language like that directed at any of your communities that you would find that particularly respectful. 4 people is not asking a lot. 4 people is significantly less than the input that should be involved for a project of this size. And if this amendment is defeated, it just shows that we do not want to let Providence run Providence, because obviously people outside of Providence know much better than we do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, earlier, Rep. Yuchi made, I think, a very good point about the city of Rhode Island. And you're right. We really need to think about this state, about treating it more as one entity. But this isn't the way to do it. That's a much bigger conversation. Representing a town that just yesterday, I think, losing track of time now, I think it was yesterday, just dodged a huge bullet with the PUC decision on the power plant that would have totally changed the way of life for an entire part of Burrillville. I've always understood the argument that you can't just have one town necessarily make the decision on a power plant. But that never was what Burrillville was asking for. We were asking for more local input. I don't see the harm in this amendment. The reality is, if you have a commission of 7 people and they're trying to decide something important and they can't all make the meeting and they're acting in good faith, they should postpone the meeting until they can all be there. There's 75 people in this room. We're not here every time we're in session. We've all missed, well, most of us have missed sessions from time to time, but you notice we're all here tonight because it's important. We were all here 2 nights ago on the abortion bill because it was important. Something like this, if it came before this commission in Providence, I would hope all 7 people would show up, but if for some reason someone couldn't come, I would hope the people there would continue until they had a full quorum. This is just to protect against them doing the wrong thing. There's literally no harm in passing this amendment. So I don't see any reason to oppose it.
Representative Hull.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After listening and hearing all the arguments, I need to change my vote on the First Amendment to from a yes to a no.
On the First Amendment.
On
Chairman Abney's?
correct.
All right.
Thank you.
Clerk, if you know which amendment that is, so ordered. Representative Carson.
Thank you, Speaker. I have 2 questions. I guess for, I don't know.
Leader Shikachi will yield.
So will these commissions be subject to the open meetings law?
Absolutely yes.
So I'm not an expert on the open meetings law, but don't they need a quorum in order to vote?
That's correct.
So if there's 3 people there, they can't vote. That's not a quorum.
That's correct. But if there are 4 people there, that is a quorum,
Correct.
and they can vote.
Thank you.
The issue of the amendment is, of the 4 people who were voting, how many do you need? So if there were 4 people voting under Representative Agello's amendment, you would need, let's reverse the argument that everyone's talking about. You would need only 1 person to kill the project. And that's the problem. That's why supermajorities are not good, because it actually creates more power or more authority in the minority. And respectfully, I just want to address the article as written does not shut out local control. It does not dismiss local control at all. It just switches it to a different forum. And local neighbors, neighborhood associations, city councilmen, state reps, state senators, anybody can be heard. This is an open process. There's a vote. And if you don't like the result, just like anything else, you file an appeal. Thank you.
Representative Rangland Vassal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Request, please. Request.
Proceed.
I'd like to change my vote on the First Amendment
From
a yes
a
to
yay
no.
to a nay, so
Yes.
ordered.
Thank you, Speaker.
Representative Agello.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, I've heard Representative Shekarchi, Leader Shekarchi's argument about a supermajority, and I think in some ways he's making my case. If 7 people are on this commission, 4 of them constitute a quorum, so 4 of them present at the meeting can make the decision. And then only 3 of them are required to pass the decision, to approve the decision. There's just too few people on this commission. We're replacing local people, local planners, local zoning people, the local city council, and the mayor, with potentially just 3 appointed individuals making the decision. If it shouldn't be at least 4, then I don't think we should approve this at all, because we're giving too much power to too few people who are not elected. And yes, they have to listen to the neighbors, but the neighbors don't have a vote. The residents don't have a vote.
Representative Kislak.
Yes, thank you. I'll be very brief because Representative Agello just made my point for me. Of course, the Open Meetings Act will allow us to be heard, and we will come and we will be heard if we are concerned, but it replaces the decision makers with democratically elected bodies and bodies appointed by democratically elected people of the municipality to a very few people appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Senate. There could be nobody from the city of Providence involved in this process, and that is troubling. I rise in strong support of this amendment. We ask that there be more people required to be present to make these decisions so that more voices could be at the decision-making table. However, while I support this amendment, I will continue to oppose this article. Thank you.
Representative Yuchi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this amendment for the reasons of really stymieing and requiring a supermajority unanimous consideration if there are only 4 folks. Who in their district has a state parcel with 20 acres? I do. I have the landfill and all that vacant land. And guess what? It's running out of space. And we're going to be expanding. And that's going to happen. That's the reality of it. Do you know who else supports this bill and is against this amendment? My mayor. Mayor Policina says, I support this because in my town, in Johnston, we're booming. Citizens built that massive campus and put 2 exits in. FM Global did all infrastructure work and built a new building and made a tremendous office building. There are people in town, the stores are filled, everything. Why? Because we have a streamlined permitting process. We have a business-friendly environment. We have not to brag on my colleagues in the room, we have a delegation that supports this. So when they went to build Citizens, and 7 of the people around there were upset and nervous of what's gonna happen, we didn't all jump behind them and say, oh, don't build it. We said, let it come. Those people love it now. We have more access to our community. We have enhanced sewer lines, water lines. When you look at Providence, the skies, you're right, the buildings are empty. Why? Why are the buildings empty? Why? They're not empty in Johnston. Johnston. People used to laugh about Johnston. People don't laugh anymore. They're empty in Providence, and it's a shame. Why? Because people want to have a conversation. They want to have more input. They want to tell them move the building 7 feet to the left. They want to tell them maybe we should have the park over here. That's wonderful. That's all great things. We need to act. We are in a crisis. We need to allow for building. We cannot have amendments like these that sound open in order to control it and make it almost impossible to pass things. I respect my colleagues. I understand their constituents are upset about some of this, but we need to rise above that sometimes. It pains me to say I'll never stop the expansion of the landfill. I can't. We can't put it anywhere else. I have to work with you to make it more palatable. I would implore you all to take that same tone, especially on this, and please vote down this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, on the amendment, no further lights. Clerk, unlock the machine. All in support, please vote green. Those opposed, red. Clerk, lock the machine. 22 in favor, 50 opposed. The amendment fails. Back on the article.